who was among 10 people killed north of Moscow. The aircraft he was on could be seen hurtling downwards, trailing smoke, with an onboard explosion believed to be the likely cause of the crash. His death, alleged death, we don't know for certain, to be honest, occurs 2 months to the day since he led an abortive mutiny against the military top brass, something Putin described as treacherous. And as always, be careful what you wish for. With reports today that the Russian spy chief behind Salisbury poisonings is tipped to take over the command of the Wagner mercenary group. Now, there's a lot to get your head round here, so I'm glad I've got an expert in the studio. Former strategic intelligence analyst Euan Grant is going to talk us through what is going on, what can we make of this. Euan, welcome to the studio. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I wanted to go straight in, just in case people out there are getting a little bit fatigued with the Russia-Ukraine thing, and I think that can happen. But this story relates very much to what happens in this country. So tell me about the link between the Salisbury poisonings, and remember that horrific, that poor lady, Dawn Grant, was it? Dawn Sturgis, lost her life with a poisoned perfume bottle. So how has Salisbury linked to what's going on now?
Very, very much so. Everything is connected, and the reason Wagner got away with it for so long, and the organisation you referred to, and which I'm going to mention now, got away with it for so long, is dots were not joined up across the Western world. Don't think that this is a failure of Britain. It's a much wider failure. Britain can actually hold its head up fairly well on this, and certainly in the response to helping Ukraine and being aware of this. The GRU, Soviet military intelligence, and now Russian military intelligence, the parallel to the old KGB and carefully kept apart, different commands, divide and rule. That is the mother and father of Wagner. Wagner came out of the GRU decades ago, going way back to the Cold War. So the raw materials are vital rare earths, the metals for electric cars. The GRU were in those countries decades ago, directly and with the Cubans. Now, of course, the GRU, because they're less carefully watched, or were the people who did Salisbury. A bit harder to track them down, but Bellingcat, you know, Bellingcat, that marvellous organisation, nailed them.
But just to explain for people that aren't aware what Bellingcat is exactly.
Bellingcat is a private open source investigation organisation centred around Elliot Higgins, who has been severely criticised by the Russians. That is a testament to his success. They don't just cover Russia, they cover misconduct. They did one brilliant one on dog nappers. People kidnapping dogs. We've seen a murder this week.
Yeah, I know. Awful, yes.
Yeah. So the GRU are real, and it hits us, it hits North America, it hits Europe.
So, I mean, firstly, do you actually believe that Prigozhin has been killed, or are you a bit dubious? I mean, there's no proof that he was on that plane and has been killed. And I'm no military expert, but it does seem a bit weird that you had the leader of an organisation and all his top bods flying on one plane.
That is a very, very powerful point, because that is puzzling a lot of people, including me. I would like to say that although on your channel I did several times in January and February last year, so before the re-invasion, I did predict the invasion. I thought it was likely and that it would come where it did.
Yes, I remember you saying. I remember, yeah.
But I actually thought Prigozhin would get away with it because he has so much dirt on Putin. So this is clearly a message that Putin, despite that issue, because Prigozhin did have dirt, reckons he can still take that chance. I'm working on the assumption, like others, though we're all caveating it, he almost certainly is dead. This would be too much of a volte-face.
Right, OK, because this has happened before in 2019, I think, in Africa.
Yes, but
he
not
was
to
supposed
anything.
to be dead then, but obviously popped up again.
That was somebody spinning to...
Right.
Not to this scale. And notice that was in Africa, not right in the heart of Russia.
So what has happened recently with Prigozhin's assassination and the people that are going with him and, the new commander basically being responsible for the Salisbury poisonings, what does it mean for us here? What effect is it going to have on us? Should we be more scared? I mean...
We should be more scared about international conflict, undermining Western values, winning over the global south, the source of the raw materials and the trade routes.
Is that why they're so interested in Africa? Because of the...
Yes.
Right.
In a word, they can do this on the cheap.
Right.
They had the base, because as I mentioned, the base was the Cold War KGB, but particularly the GRU, because they were essentially a foreign service. KGB, of course, was divided into foreign and, as it is now, formally, foreign and domestic. I mean, it was largely a domestic security and law enforcement agency, albeit not in a democracy. So, yes, we should. And I think it is hugely significant, although I'm not a fan of Boris Johnson, I would urge everybody, whether you love him or loathe him, read his article in the Daily Mail. He doesn't think it's a coincidence that this happened the day in the middle of the BRICS summit in South Africa.
Right.
Putin only spoke by video link. He didn't want to be arrested by for the International Criminal Court. But he had his man Lavrov, the foreign minister, and I strongly suspect that Lavrov, whose unofficial stepdaughter paid several £1 million in cash for a flat near Harrods, gave verbal messages, no electronic communications, no electronic footprint, to all the leaders of the BRICS the morning after to say business as usual. Your deals with us, no questions asked, are still there.
It is quite chilling. It's very, I mean, obviously, to people that don't have your expertise in this area, it is very confusing trying to get your head. There was another story today in one of the papers that the jailed opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, has described this as basically a mistake by Putin, and it could plunge Russia into a civil war. But you seem to be saying the opposite, that it makes Putin stronger.
I wouldn't go that far, because Navalny is an extremely brave man. Remember, he's been poisoned. They very nearly killed him. And again, that's another blatant attack. The articles, by the way, in the Times by Mark Bennett, it's effectively a rolling news article.
Yes.
That's absolutely brilliant, following all this through, and it leads off with Navalny's comments. I don't think the two are incompatible. A mistake, he's gone too far, in that it weakens him, but it strengthens him in the short term. So I think there's room. It's always wise to work on both assumptions and have contingency plans. Does
Putin really believe he is invincible? As I said, they seem to be able to go to whatever country they want around the world and murder citizens, as we had with Salisbury. And as you say, we're not the only country that these sort of things have happened in. So does Putin actually, a bit like Trump in a way, I guess, actually believe they are invincible, believe that they are,
Semi-invincible.
Yeah.
Semi-invincible.
Oh, right, OK. Why do you say semi?
Semi in that they have a crucial advantage, which is increasingly common, and we're going to see it more from China. The Chinese have done it, not to a great scale. We've certainly seen Iran do it, lethally so. They can take hostages.
Right.
And our response, the Western world, law enforcement, even into so-called ordinary criminal cases, we are going to see increasing examples of hostage taking. Innocent people are going to be taken hostage in order to protect Russia's people. The classic example, of course, and you've got the book on front of you there, Damian Lewis's Operation Relentless on Victor Bout. And Victor Bout is now out of a US jail, back in Russia. I think he's a member of the Duma. And Russians took a hostage. They took the basketball player hostage to get him back, and they did get him back. And of course, Boot kept his mouth shut.
So,
Prigozhin didn't.
Well, quite. So, Euan, just we're running out of time, unfortunately. One quick answer. So, will Putin stop, or does he need to be stopped?
Second point, he needs to be stopped.
And
because if he isn't stopped, the new BRICS and the Chinese will see this as an open goal to take a penalty shot at. The Chinese will do it differently. They'll be more subtle. But no, we're very near the Rubicon now.
Oh, right, OK, chilling stuff.